it's Jess, voice of Rigmor in Rigmor of Bruma and Rigmor of Cyrodiil, both for Skyrim Legacy or Special Edition. This is the video to accompany the Q&A for the Rigmor of Cyrodiil Facebook page. Thank you so much, everybody who put in their questions and their wonderful comments over the past couple of weeks, and I'm here to answer your questions, so here we go. This first question is from Anthony DeGuay. Anthony asks, what was your favorite scene in the mod? There is a lot. There is a lot of really cool scenes in the mod overall, and it's kind of difficult to pick. I really enjoyed in Rigmor of Bruma after you rescue her from the sacrificial altar and she comes to and she's sort of fuzzy about who she is, and she has this sort of girlish, like demure, confused way about her. It was a departure from Rigmor's typical character that you see her throughout most of the mod, aside from that scene. And there's something just more delicate about her. And I love that. It was an opportunity to kind of change up fundamentally, you know, how she's feeling. She's like a different person for a little bit of time. But another favorite scene that I have is in Rigmor of Cyrodiil when she really lays into Blackwell. That was a lot of fun to record and to see it delivered. It was great. And everyone afterward, she's just like, oh, and walks away, and everyone's just kind of left like, all right, where do we go from here? They don't, like, what do you do with that? That's kind of the vibe in the room. What do I do with this? This question is from Greg Nichols. Which emotion did you find the most difficult to capture, and which was the easiest? The hardest, most difficult emotion for me to capture and deliver for Rigmor was probably her tenderness towards the Dragonborn. Not so much just, you know, her genuine feelings of kinship, but the more like romantic colored things. There's just something about it. It was there's this great vulnerability in Rigmor that kind of hides beneath the surface. And I feel like as a person, she too would struggle with revealing this kind of side to her. And maybe I'm making it sound more elegant than it actually is, but I did struggle with that. And it was hard for me to deliver it and feel that, you know, she was sincere. So it took a lot before I was able to be satisfied conveying that kind of emotion. My easiest emotion for her, I'm kind of a silly person. So her kind of funny lines, my favorite line actually answers someone else's question, what my favorite line is. When we're getting ready to go address the Imperial troops and meet with Cassius, and she puts on the Imperial uniform, and she's cracking up because she's wearing a dress, and she wants to know, you know, do you think the Imperial Army wears underwear? And she's just dying over that. And that was my favorite line. And I love those moments with her when she is a girl. I mean, she's an older teen, but when she gets to be a girl and she's not a warrior, and you see that other part of her. But her seriousness, her anger, is probably the easiest for me to channel. This one's for Abigail Hardage. Whatever. This question is from Connor Garrison. When preparing to record for Rigmor, is there a certain way you prepare to get into character? Yes. I mean, I have my routine to prep to record, and how I get into character, put her on. She's like a costume that I put on. Yeah. I usually have a glass of water. I put a little lemon in it. Put on some chapstick. I'm actually using the microphone on my phone to do this, so I'm sorry if it doesn't sound like what you may be used to. I have my Blue Yeti here. Sans all of the equipment that I have hanging on it. But as far as prepping to put on the character of Rigmor, I do cold reads of the script several times. I try them different ways because otherwise the vocal packages that I send along to Jim will just be super long. And even though, you know, he already has to listen to me as Rigmor for many hours for the purposes of building the mod, he doesn't need to listen to all of my outtakes. He does still get some though, especially if there's ambient noise. I live on a busy street, and you'll hear planes and sirens, and you know, I just try to fill the silence sometimes because I have to wait so that I don't, you know, you're not hearing ambulance sirens in the background while Rigmor is talking about picking flowers. This is a long one from Mark Dodd. Some of the emotions Rigmor expresses, such as her negative body image in Rigmor of Bruma, her continuing doubt about the Dragonborn's love and fearing losing it, her yearning for the wonder and simplicity of childhood are all so well expressed by you. Thank you. And I lost my spot. I can only think of what Jim asked required you digging deep into personal experience. Without wanting to probe too much in your private life, would some of the reality of Rigmor come from personal experiences? That is a good question. Deciding how much I would like to share. Well, I guess first I have to say, Rigmor is not me. I am not Rigmor. But yes, there are certain things that, you know, influences in my life that do help me channel Rigmor to put on her character and to deliver her lines and her emotions as accurately as I feel that I can. Part of it, I think, is just a product of growing up, and you see how the world works, particularly in Rigmor of Cyrodiil, when it shifts from physical danger more to political intrigue and this whole like behind the scenes show that's going on. I think for most people who do acting, your well of personal experience is important. And the more experiences you have in life, the deeper the well that you can pull from. When you need to unpack a certain emotion, you know how something either feels or something similar feels, and you can kind of channel that into something that's useful for you. Things not going the way that we wanted and kind of just left holding the bag, and what do I do with this? And sometimes there is no resolution, and I can identify with that struggle that she has. You know, what do I do with this? How do I reconcile with how I feel with everything that went on? And somehow you got to try to move on from that. And I try to convey that struggle for her. I hope that answers the question. This question is from Larry Richard Jr. How are you and Rigmor alike? Different. Where would you like to see Rigmor go, or what would you like to see her do next? Rigmor and I, yeah, we are kind of alike. We are not each other, but we do have similar qualities. We try to be sort of crunchy on the outside, but on the inside, we're just like a warm cup of pudding. You know, she's very like, whatever, you know, like, all right, go, you know, shove off. And she's just 300% done a lot of times. Like, she's not playing. But then you see these moments where she's vulnerable, and you see maybe what is her true self underneath, or who she wants to be. I also like her humor. She's a bit of a prankster. She also is kind of silly. Again, going back to laughing about the Imperial uniform, and it's a skirt, and do they wear underwear, and she's a little bit naive, unfortunately. Sometimes I've been told that I am a bit naive, but we are different, where, you know, Rigmor is ready to throw down. I talk like I'm ready to throw down, but I would not, you know. If you've spent any time with Rigmor, you know that she doesn't listen. That may or may not also be like me. What would I like to see her go do next? Well, in a practical sense, I would love a quest-aware Rigmor. She's aware of her own quests as you're going through the mod, but there is so much to do in Skyrim, and so much that you could be doing when she is with you, especially in the first leg of the mod in Rigmor of Bruma, that it would be nice for her to be quest aware of these things, especially like the faction quests. Like, I would love to hear, you know, what she would think about, you know, what you're doing in the Dark Brotherhood, how she would feel about, you know, what's going on in Dawnguard. This question is from Uli Bauer. He has a multi-part question. How did I get into voice acting in the first place? I actually took drama for 3 years in high school, which was a long time ago. I won't tell you how long ago. But I loved it, and I always kind of low-key wanted to do voice acting since I was in middle school, so now that's probably closer to 15 years ago. But I finally had the opportunity in high school, and like I said, I did it for 3 years. And it really helped me learn how to project. I did a lot of improvisation, which I really loved. It kind of just like working off of other people, what they were putting out there, and it made me a little quicker on my feet. It is one of those skills that you use or you lose it. Do I use any particular techniques like method acting? Not really. It depends. Voice acting functions differently for me than other creative pursuits that I have. Like, if I'm sitting down to write, a lot of what I write is usually in first person, and then I will see a benefit in method preparation. You know, putting on, you know, an outfit that this character would wear, or just kind of playing around with, you know, what would it actually feel like to be this character. When it comes to voice acting in general, I don't do that. I don't feel the need to. It just takes a little bit of like practice, and it's become something that I can just kind of come back into after a while. I've spent so much time performing as Rigmor that with a little bit of warm up, I can kind of slip back into, okay, this is her. There are many people who love Rigmor, but there are also some haters. Tell me about it. To what extent did positive or negative reactions on the internet affect you, being an essential member of the team who created it? Well, I think it depends on what kind of negative reactions they are, or positive reactions. If they have some substance to them, if it's not, you know, blind on like, if it's praise without substance, or if it's negativity without substance, both of those are worth less than things that cite examples, things that are thoughtful. And it's not to say that they're, you know, they're not appreciated. Positive things that are just like, oh my god, I love it, you know, that's not appreciated. But ones with more information that you can build off of are definitely more useful and carry more weight. Especially when it comes to negative reactions, because you could have a whole swath of positive feedback, and that one like hater nugget can kind of just like knock all of that out. And so I feel like that negative feedback is even more important. You have to look at if it has substance to it. Are there things that they're pointing out that, you know, fall short of their expectation? Because it's worth looking at and seeing, you know, well, how can I make this better? How can I also reach this audience who's not totally on board? Because ideally you want to reach as many people as you can, and if someone is taking the time to tell you what they feel falls short, you want to try to address that. And I've tried to, with increasing success, take that kind of information into account as I've gone on to, as I have voiced other mods in my career leading up to Rigmor. So those are still useful, and everything is appreciated. Just people gotta be respectful. Not for my sake, but just, you know, it's good practice in being a decent person. Star Killer Linehan. What has it been like working with Jim? Jim is great. We have been working together for the better part of maybe almost 5 years now. I feel like I usually underestimate the amount of time. But you know, he's really supportive and he's really vocal. You know, he's full of ideas and he shares them, and we correspond mostly through email. And when he sends me lines, or he, you know, checks in with me, you know, I have to take some time out to, you know, read what he says, because he has a tendency to write me a story, and it's lovely. And I like that, you know, we're comfortable in that way, that he feels like he can share all the stuff that's going on creatively behind the scenes. And it's really nice. And through the years, you know, we've shared some other things about our lives, and so there is a personal aspect there too. But he's, you know, he's very professional to work with, and he can do amazing things with like modeling and Cubase and writing music. All of the songs that you see in the Rigmor mods, to my knowledge, they have all been composed and the lyrics written by Jim. At the end of Rigmor of Bruma, there's a song, This Child, which is actually a duet between us. I recorded my part, and he provided acoustic guitar and vocal accompaniment. And that is a really special song to me, because, you know, we've been working together so long, and like that's sort of like the culmination of us working together. It's just, I think it's cool. Connor Patterson is asking, are you into or ever heard of the Witcher franchise? Because whenever I play, I tend to think of Rigmor as Ciri. That's interesting. I am familiar with The Witcher, both the books and the computer games. I haven't played them a ton, but I have watched some Let's Plays. I have read a little bit of the first book, which I think is a compilation of short stories. Yeah, I could see a little bit Rigmor as Ciri and the Dragonborn as Geralt. Geralt's really cool. The world of The Witcher is really cool. Randy Fielding, have you ever had a voice in the decision or event in the mod storyline that you didn't like or wanted to change, saying, no, Rigmor wouldn't do that? Most of the time I let Jim drive. But there are a couple times where he has asked my opinion on something, or I'm sorry, I'm seeing a reflection or something on my wall and it's caught my attention. In particular is the romantic arc for Rigmor. Originally, when she came out as just a straight up companion, before there was this whole massive quest built around her, she wasn't interested in being your lover. She was not about the relationship at all. She was like, I got a sword, I'm gonna kill things. And that sort of appealed to me because the companion mods, no offense, that are out there tend to be a little fan servicey, particularly if they are for, if they are female followers. If they're male followers, they either don't exist or, they're not generally of that breed. So she was kind of a breath of fresh air when Jim came to me and was like, hey, I have this idea. So when we did decide to do the romance arc for Rigmor, because it was, by popular demand, people wanted it. And I mean, how could you not love her? But they wanted the romantic arc. And there is one part, I believe it's outside of Whiterun, when she's trying to figure out this whole dream craziness that's going on with her. That if you have taken the lover route, you have an opportunity to go to bed with her. And originally the scene was going to be a little bit more than a fade to black. And I decided that, I really wasn't comfortable with that. Even though it didn't require necessarily more vocal work from me, I didn't want it to seem gratuitous. I, have a professional life outside of voice acting. So I was trying to walk that line and keep the integrity that we originally had while still giving the people what they want. Because, who am I to tell you who you love? If you want to be with her, you should be with her. And I shouldn't, it has no bearing on me because she is not me. But I mean, aside from that, most of the creative directions that Jim wants to take this whole storyline in, I am down for, because if you could see what I see with all the thought that goes into it and the thinking out loud that he does, he has thought this out. And, I can't poke holes in it because I'm just like, all right, when are we doing this? Preston Garcia, what is your favorite Rigmor nemesis? My favorite Rigmor nemesis has got to be Morag Sethius. She's a daughter of Cold Harbor. Spoiler alert, maybe, but as an item in the Elder Scrolls, franchise, the Daedra are the most interesting to me. So anything associated with them appeals to me. And I was intrigued by the whole arc with Boethia and Azura. But there's something about like the evil part of it that really grabs my attention. Evan Brown, I guess a question I always wondered was, does it feel awkward voicing some lines, like confessing your love to a microphone? Well, I think I spoke earlier about those sort of lines being the most difficult for me to deliver, but the act of doing it isn't weird. It's acting. I mean, Campbell Anderson, what are your next moves after Rigmor voice acting wise? I've been Rigmor a long time, and I will probably continue to be Rigmor for some time. My life has changed a lot in the 4 or 5 years that I've been doing this, and I'm really not in a position to take on a whole lot of other responsibilities, voice acting wise, though I would love to do it. If the right role were to come along, I would certainly jump on it. I would do what I could to make time for it and make it happen, because it is a passion of mine to do this. But it would really have to be the right role, and at this moment and in the near future, I really don't see myself seeking out opportunities. Someone would have to come to me in, I guess, the way that Jim did. Jack Williams, have you yourself played through the mod? Recently. For a while, my did you know fact was, I haven't actually played the mod at all. But I decided in preparation for this Q&A, it would be about time for me to send my Dragonborn through her paces to see what Rigmor is about in game. It was kind of funny, if I could just talk a little bit about that for a minute. I had actually been working on this character for a while with the intention of playing Rigmor, but, you know, first thing I noticed once I started playing it, Rigmor is a badass. Like, she don't need me to be there. She don't need no guardian. Like, I think I was level 28, and I was having a hard time with some of these baddies in the early stages, and she's just like wiping them out. I'm like, you got this. I'm gonna be back here. She's a little too zealous sometimes, especially after you aggro the Imperial Guards, and then, you know, anytime they're in proximity, she's just like ready to go like ham on them, and I'm like, oh, we gotta go. But I have become attached to her. I haven't gotten all the way through Rigmor of Bruma, but I have seen a lot of Let's Plays. You know, I lived through it, you know, doing the lines and seeing the complete script, but it has been a little bit of time. So, what is old is new again, in a way. But it's interesting because when I'm playing through, I don't see her as me. When I hear her talk, I don't hear myself. I don't know if whether or not you can tell in this video, but my natural voice, which you're hearing now, is Rigmor's voice is a little bit lower than that. And depending on her emotion, you may hear more of my natural sound come through, particularly if she's being silly. But when I hear her voice, I don't hear myself. It's not weird in that way, except there are some battle noises. And I think it's something really like weird or something. When I hear that, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. But that's the only time that I'm really like, oh, that's me. Every other time it's like, no, this is Rigmor. This is Rigmor. She's her, not, you know, it has nothing to do with me. So that was weird the first time I heard it. I was like, ooh, what is that? Victor Sabat, simple question. How long does it take you to record your lines? It really depends. Usually it takes an hour or two. Because when I do receive my lines, it's a big chunk. Like, it's gonna take a while. And usually once I complete those, I won't get another batch of lines for, you know, 4 to 6 months. So it's a big chunk at a time, and it's, you know, whatever Jim has been able to write the script of going forward, because he's kind of like building the plane while he's flying it a little bit, you know, builds this piece, okay, this is what I'm gonna need, or this is the direction I know I'm, like, as far as he's already planned, that's what he sends me. And it does take me a little bit of time to be able to get into my studio, you know, which is actually, you know, a corner in my apartment, and get the acoustics right, because since I moved, the acoustics in here aren't great, and it's been a struggle, and there's been blankets and, you know, acoustic foam stuck to room screens. It's been a mess. So all those kind of like little technical things will kind of make it take longer. I also have downstairs neighbors, and sometimes it's not conducive to doing this. If I have to scream or cry or do something else alarming, I try to do it when no one is here so they don't think I'm getting murdered or murdering somebody. But the actual, when I do sit down and record, it can take an hour or two depending. Martin Den Odin, is Rigmor's character model based on your face? She does look like you, I think. Okay. I don't know if it's just because not as many people have seen my face, but originally what I heard people were saying was that Rigmor looks like Ellen Page. And a lot of characters in video games around the time that people were saying that also kind of looked like Ellen Page, and I think that was much to the chagrin of Jim. But I do see the Ellen Page-ness a little bit. I'm sorry. But I mean, we both have dark hair. I think Rigmor and Rigmor of Cyrodiil looks more like me than Rigmor and Rigmor of Bruma, but the reason is because of the dark, long hair. I don't think that we really resemble each other. Matthias, excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, Forrestal. Do you have any hobbies outside voice acting? Of course I do. Probably the simplest one to talk about would be playing video games, if you can consider that a hobby. I feel like a lot of people do it, that it's more of a normal part of life now than an actual hobby. But I like RPGs that play similar to Skyrim. My fiance has me playing Final Fantasy right now, 14. And I'm not really an MMO person. I'm really not even into ESO that much, but the MMO is starting to grow on me. Survival horror. I do like puzzle games. I don't know. I guess this would be considered an arcade game. Cook Serve Delicious is one of my favorites on Steam, and the sequel to it. I also really, 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 really love The Long Dark, and I've been playing it since I think the beta was released. And that's really come a long way, and the Hinterland studio is amazing. They do great work. My other hobbies, I do like to write. I have written the equivalent of some novels that kind of just original work that kind of just lives on my computer, working on a second draft. I have written Elder Scrolls fanfiction before. I don't have as much time to do it now. I spend a lot of time reading nonfiction for work. And being on a computer all day, that being on a computer when I'm off of work will kind of like make my eyes just want to cross. I'm also kind of crafty. I do make like things out of clay. I do draw. You can see some of my artwork in the background, watercolor and acrylic. Morrowind is my favorite Elder Scrolls game. As you can see my Vardenfell map from Game of the Year edition. So everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to ask these questions. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun getting to answer these things for you. Thank you for playing Rigmor of Bruma, Rigmor of Cyrodiil, and stay tuned for anything new that might be coming up. And I hope to answer more questions or chat with you guys soon. Thanks.